Hello and welcome to this video. My name is David Thorne. In this video we're going to be talking about, or we're going to be introducing you to the print function in Python. Now this is actually the second lesson. They are in the first lesson I went through lots of other introduction things, but now we're going to start moving into the print function. So without any further ado, let's get started. As you can see, I've got 7 examples here. And this is now example 1 of the most basic usage of print. Now you've seen print already, but if you haven't, then this is message variable. It says then hello, comma, dash Python, exclamation mark. And then we are just using this function of print. Now, if you don't know what a function is, well, on your calculator, you say like add 4, comma 3 is synonymous to basically then 4 plus 3. This is a function, and it would just be in this sense then x plus y is equal to z or whatever like that. So this is just basically what a function is, but just trust me for now. It's a function where it takes a parameter and it outputs, it does something, it writes it to standard out, and it's going to say hello Python. I'm not going to run this because it literally just says hello Python. So if we do run it, and that is the most basic form of it. And you can place anything between these two quotes here and it will go in there. And this is also then synonymous to hello world here, right? This is exactly the same thing. Yes, the text is different, but you can do it this way too. So this is the absolute basic usage of the print function, all right? So let's move to the second one. Now we're doing printing variables. We've seen that already, but we've got now name is in a string and age is 30, which is not correct. It's mine, age is 44. So we can see here that we're saying name, colon, and then name here. And we're going to move into this a little bit further, but as you can see, it's going to print out name with a space. And let's just put David here as well, and then change it to here. And you're going to say that my name is then name, colon, and then a space here, David. The print function will automatically put a space at the end of this string for you when it has a variable to place into it. All right. So, but we're going to talk about that further. And then age is 44. Does the same thing once again. I can run this for you, but I promise you this is what it's going to output. Anyway, so let's now move on to the next example. And this example, we're going to print multiple variables. Okay, so this one we could print as the previous one like this, but we don't have to. We can put it all in line, all right? This print function can take a lot of variables, basically. And every single time it encounters a variable, it will then concatenate it onto the end of this string. If you don't know what concatenate means in this sense, don't worry, we're going to talk over that a little bit later. But for the time being, just think about it as it's going to take the value of this and it's going to plonk it on the end with a space before it, okay? So it's going to be x is equal to space, then the value of x, which is going to be 10. Then it's going to come along and say, hey, I'm now going to put a space after it because it has a new declaration here, and it's then going to say y space is equal to, so it's going to take the value of this. Then it comes to it again and says, hey, I've got another variable here. So by default, I'm going to add a separator of it, of y, and y is then 20. And this is what essentially this is going to do. It's going to say this. So, but we don't have to do that. We can just say x is equal to then x, and then y is equal to y. It's a little bit more declarative. And this is what it's then going to output. Right? You can keep doing this if you wanted to have then z is equal to, this is super annoying, this z is equal to then what, that is super annoying, x is plus y, then that is going to come in here as well, and this would then say z is equal to 30. All right, so it can do it can take an expression in there as well. So Python will work out the expression first, and then it will pump the answer into it. So this is what you can keep on doing, but you don't actually need that space after it, because remember, it is by default going to add that space for you. All right, so but we're going to move into how to modify that separator shortly. All right, so let's continue on. Now we're talking about concatenating strings. All right, we could just say full name, for example. Whoops, full name, for example, is then, and put this in quotes, is then David Thorne. But we can also separate it into variables too. So first name is equal to David and last name is equal to Thorne. And here we can say a name and then first name, last name. As we said in the previous one, it's going to add a separator between the two. So basically every single time it sees a comma, it's going to by default put a space in between the variables. And as we can see, it's going to put a space before this one because this is a variable, this is a variable. All right, this is just happens to be a literal string variable. It's already, it doesn't need a variable and identify, it has a value already. And then we're going to separate it with spaces. And so we see here, we get name, space, David, space, Thorne is there. Super, super easy. All right. So let's go on with the next example. And 5. Now we are formatting the output with the end parameter. Now, every single time we print something, it's essentially got this end and then the forward slash or the backslash n, so a new line feed on there all the time. If we look at the documentation here, you see the end is by default always a new line feed, and the separator, which we're going to get to later. So when we say print this is a sentence, right, it's implicitly already putting a backslash n there. We say you actually don't need to declare this, all right? But I just wanted to declare it to show you how and where that's happening. And so we'll see that this goes to a new, so this is a sentence and it will then go to a new line with a new line underneath it, all right? Now, if you wanted to call many print functions one after the other for clarity within inside of your code, then you can change this end to be then just a space or nothing basically, all right? So we are saying, hey, the backslash n is now going to be a space instead, and we see that here that it's going to be this is a sentence, and then followed by our space is the end without a new line, all right? So it's going to continue just the same, okay? And yeah, if you leave end off, then it's going to default to this anyway, all right? And if you want to place something else in there, for example, you could place you could place like, a sep in here, and now, but every single where this is a sentence, there will literally be that on the end of it. The string would look like this, all right? And at the end of this, it would look like that at the end of it as well, because that's the end and so on. So, but we don't need that. Yes, let's just leave it like that. Okay, and then example 6. Customizing separators. So let's just start off with this items. We've already seen this separator, but in the instructions here, separator is by default then a space, and we saw that in the second example here, that every single time it saw a name, it put a separator of a space there, as we saw here. So whoops. And now we're going to come to an array. Now, we haven't been over arrays yet, but it's just a collection of strings here. So plan, design, develop, test, and deploy, all right? And we're going to take a quick sneak peek at the unpacking operator and star. And this is doing nothing more than saying, hey, don't just output. I want you to imagine that this here is inside of this. So it's going to replace this variable with all of the contents, comma separated with the items. All right, so this magic is going to happen in the background. And this is then going to output this here. All right, because what we're saying here now is the separator should be a comma followed by a space instead. So here's a separator, and so on. All right, and so this is all that the unpacking operator is doing. It's taking a nice array and it's just pumping it into this one print function and then separating each value with a comma and a space. So if we did just do plan, design, develop, test, and deploy in print, that would then essentially output without a separator here, without define the separator. It would then output plan, design, develop, test, and deploy as per the other examples with a space as the separator, okay? Now, just to say what would happen if we didn't use the unpacking operator, then it would just basically just print this in the console, right? It's just going to show you like a JSON view of what this array looks like, all right? And so then this would be really synonymous once again to not using the separator and leaving it at default and saying item 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, that's basically what the star is saying to the star is saying for the unpacking. All right, so this is, if we just use the star right now, this is what it would actually look like. Yeah, but so this is basically the same thing. Okay, and then the final one is formatting numbers. So we haven't been over this right now, but this is then a float that we're going to be using. All right, and we've got here 4 decimal places. And if we use this F, this is saying, hey, you're going to format this for us. And so now we can actually place the variable names inside of the string. All right, and this F is super important. If you're going to use this, then if you don't use it, then there is literally going to be a curly braces value and that here, and that literally is what's going to be output. This value is not going to be replaced into it. All right, but by putting this F here before it, then Python knows, right, look for any placeholders, and this is a placeholder, right? And then this value variable, I want you to look to see whether you find anything within inside of that block, and so on, blah blah blah. And if it does, then it's going to print this out here, because that's the exact value that was inside this value variable here. All right. Now, if we now want to reduce it down to say just 2 decimal places, well, if we do that mathematically, right, and round it, then we are going to see an 8 following the 7. So it's going to have to round. It's going to have to round it to the nearest number. And because we are 5 and above, it's going to say it's going to say 68 instead. So saying :2f is saying, hey, I want you to then format it within 2 decimal places afterwards. All right, and we can do this with 3 as well. And noticing that 6, 7, 8, 9 is going to round it to 6, 7, 9 here with 3 decimal places. All right. And then we can do it with 4. Again, it doesn't change the number at all, right? Because in this sense, it has 4 already. But if it did have 5, then it would continue to format them once again, right? There is a lot more what you can do with the format, with the print function, all right? And it can be very, very helpful to you. And this is the newer way of doing it. There is an older way of doing it, which I'm going to go through in forthcoming videos. All right. Other than that, if you do have any questions, concerns, anything like this, please feel free to put them in the comment section below. And it would really, really help me for a like or a dislike if you don't like it. But rather than giving me a dislike, please be honest and tell me what you didn't like about it and how I can change it, because I'm all about improving my skills and all about improving my way of teaching or instructing you to do something. And if you want me to go any further, deeper into something to explain it, I will, all right? Because I really want to. And Python in today's society is such an important language to learn for programming. And there are other reasons for it, which I'm not going to get into right now. But just trust me, is that before, Python for me wasn't that important. But today, for the future, Python is critical to learn as a developer. And even if you're going to do JavaScript, PHP, or whatever in other areas, I would really advise you to understand the syntax and how the basics of Python work. And this really is the nearly the pure basics now. Other than that, thank you very much for watching, and I shall see you in the next video where we'll dig a little bit deeper into the print function. All right, a little bit more advanced way of using it, or extended way of using it. Okay, thanks then. Goodbye.